Constitutional Court this morning. Aldrin, good morning to you. Talk to us about the difference between the impeachment process as well as that of the motion of no confidence.
Oh, good morning, Palisa. First of all, the impeachment process is a process where the argument that has been made by the EFF as well as the UDM and Cope is that when it comes to an impeachment, there must be grounds to establish the severity of how the Constitution, the failure of the President to uphold, defend and respect the Constitution in terms of his oath of office. So what they want in terms of the EFF and the Cope as well as the UDM is that they want an independent inquiry, an ad hoc committee that will be set up, an ad hoc committee that will call witnesses, subpoena witnesses and cross-examine those witnesses. And of course, one of those witnesses will be President Jacob Zuma. While the difference between the impeachment in this case is that the impeachment would at least need a two-third majority for it to be successful. And this is different to the motion of no confidence, because with the motion of no confidence, as it's been said before, that you don't actually need any grounds or substantive grounds to remove a sitting president. You just simply pass a motion of no confidence with a 50% plus one of the votes. This is the majority of the members of parliament. And if that is successful, that would mean that the president as well as the entire executive must step down. And that's what a motion of no confidence is. While as with an impeachment, it's only the president that steps down. But in both instances, should the president step down, he loses all his benefits or forfeits all his benefits.
And Aldrin, we know that you've been covering this case for us. Talk to us about some of the substantive issues that were raised during the arguments.
Well, some of those substantive issues is in terms of the motion of no confidence against the president. If you remember that after the Nkandla judgment, the DA went to Parliament. They asked for a motion of no confidence to be debated in President Jacob Zuma. That motion was debated and was unsuccessful. The arguments from the EFF is that that motion of no confidence and the debate thereof was premature. Their argument is that if you look at an impeachment of the president, the impeachment says that there must be grounds, and their basis on this is that the grounds would only be established if there is an independent ad hoc committee that will look into this. Now, just before the motion of no confidence was debated last year, the EFF had sent a letter to the Speaker of Parliament asking the Speaker of Parliament to institute an independent inquiry. However, though, their independent inquiry, what they envisaged rather in the court in that letter that was sent to the Speaker of Parliament, is that they were not asking for a multi-party ad hoc committee, but instead what they wanted was for 3 judges to be appointed, and those 3 retired judges to look into the conduct of the president. So unfortunately, the Speaker of Parliament did not do that. She said that that does not fall within the realm of Parliament, considering as well that President Jacob Zuma is not a member of Parliament, and because he's not a member of Parliament, you can't have such processes. However, though, she did indicate that the available processes would be a multi-party ad hoc committee. And just listening back to some of the arguments that were made in court, and a question that was asked to Maniji, who was representing the Speaker of Parliament, was whether the Speaker of Parliament is adverse or doesn't want the ad hoc committee to be established. And he said that no, she certainly has no problems with the ad hoc committee being established. However, though, they had not come to that agreement that the ad hoc committee must be established as it stands at this point.
And I believe, Aldrin, this is probably one of the cases where a judicial overreach will also come under scrutiny.
Well, certainly, with many of these cases, especially the cases that involve the president. If you look at the quite recent 2 cases that were handed down in the North Gauteng High Court, the first court case being the court there in the North Gauteng High Court saying that President Jacob Zuma is too conflicted and he cannot appoint the NDPP, and therefore the deputy president must step in and appoint the NDPP. Questions were raised there. People were arguing that it is judicial overreach, considering that the Constitution gives the president the powers to appoint the head of the National Prosecuting Authority and not the deputy president. Another case in point is a case around the state capture ruling, also handed down by the North Gauteng High Court, where the court upheld the Public Protector's state of capture report in terms of state of capture. And remember that the argument that the president president made in taking this matter, or taking the report for review, was that the president was arguing that I, as the president of the country, it's only I who have the power to establish a judicial commission of inquiry, and those powers cannot be taken away from me, even when it comes to the appointment of a judge, because the public protector in her state of capture report said that it must be the Chief Justice that appoints the judge that would look into these issues of judicial of state capture, and this case will be one of those cases as well. But what we've seen before in this court is this court has stayed clear, or try at least to stay clear, when it comes to judicial overreach, when it comes to overstepping the mark and respecting the roles of the different arms of the state, including the legislature as well. And if you look, for instance, at the secret vote ballot, when the opposition parties came to the court and asked that the court instruct Parliament to have a motion of no confidence in President Jacob Zuma be voted via a secret ballot, this court only said that the Speaker of Parliament has the discretionary powers to decide whether a ballot should be secret or open, but it also gave grounds on what are some of the things that she should have considered. And if you look at the declaratory order that the EFF is seeking in this court case, the EFF is also seeking a declaratory order that the Speaker of Parliament has failed in her duties to ensure that you hold the President accountable. And this court has already found that she had failed to do that, or the National Assembly at least has failed to hold the executive accountable when you look at the Nkandla matter.
And Aldrin, just finally, in the case of that declaratory order, or perhaps the impeachment proceedings, what will that mean for the ANC?
It will definitely be a blow for the ANC, the governing party, because you know what's currently happening, and there's murmurs as well as discussions that are happening, and some pushing the newly elected ANC NEC, that when they meet in the next couple of weeks, just before the January 8th statement, that a decision must be taken to recall President Jacob Zuma. At least some may argue that it would save the president the embarrassment of having an impeachment, because if the president is impeached, that would mean that he loses all his powers. He loses all his benefits that is afforded to him as a president, which includes him getting a salary every month up until he's deceased. That's some of the benefits that the president enjoys. But if he is impeached, that would mean that all that goes away. But what happens in a case of an impeachment? That would mean that, in a case of a debate on the impeachment, that would mean that the ANC would need to instruct its members of Parliament on how to vote, as we saw what happened during the motion of no confidence. After it was said that it will be done via secret ballot, there were discussions with the ANC members of Parliament. The caucus decided that this is the way that they'll be voting, and they will be supporting the president. They will not be voting with the opposition. What happens in this case? Again, it will obviously be a blow for the ANC if the ANC indeed decides again that it will defend President Jacob Zuma. But some people may be arguing that why would you expect the ANC to vote with the opposition and remove its leader from office?
All right, Aldrin, we'll leave it at that. But do we know the exact time of the ruling, maybe?
The ruling is expected to be handed down at 10 o'clock, so just over under 2 hours from now.
All right, thank you so much. Let's leave it at that. Our reporter, Aldrin Sampear, live from the Constitutional Court. Do stay tuned to Channel 404 as Aldrin is covering that particular ruling that will be handed down at 10 o'clock, as he said. Now, moving along.